Ladies and gentlemen, the cult of global warming wants a Sabbath. And moreover, they want to force the entire world to worship their creation on the day of their choosing. This is, there's no other way to put it, a truly satanic agenda. And while I won't be getting into my beliefs, and I really am agnostic as to your beliefs, what I want to present to you today is an objective look at what they believe and what they are putting forward. And it's truly remarkable. Calls from the Christian Science Monitor to the Jewish publication Tablet, all echoing this idea that we should really bring back the Sabbath. And you can look at the Green Sabbath Project to get an idea of what that means. Nothing. It means nothing is what everyone must be doing on Sundays. No travel, no shopping, and there's been a dramatic increase in the calls for this since the outset of this pandemic in 2020. Indeed, though, it's been around for some time, and looking back now 11 years at this article from The Guardian called Slow Sunday, the Simple Solution to Global Warming, where they make it quite clear when they unambiguously state we can and should restore Sunday to a day for Gaia, a day for the earth. Yes, worshiping the creation and not the creator on the day of their choosing. This goes deep, and I'll only be able to scratch the surface today, but I at least wanted to start this conversation because I think it's an important one, particularly given that there are people who believe a global forced Sunday worship is the mark of the beast. There's a lot here to unpack. Let's talk about it. I'm Christian, that's my name, and this is the Ice Age Farmer channel. And in my last report, I mentioned that there are calls to extend the lockdown, the response to the pandemic now ad infinitum, to just keep the world locked down because it's good for the environment. We see that this lockdown, for climate reasons, has already begun. It's already happening. San Francisco Bay officials approved a plan that requires large businesses to have employees work from home 3 days a week. It's a permanent lockdown, a lasting change. And then just yesterday, Boris Johnson emerged and announced that he would be proceeding to rewild 30% of the United Kingdom. And of course, I've covered these calls to walk away from 50% of the UK's farms and just let them turn back into trees to capture carbon and shut down the sheep farming. You can make more money just by virtue of carbon offsets. You don't need the sheep anymore. The technocrats are imposing their rules on our agriculture and farming, and now Boris is promising to push people off of the land, off of the rural communities, and back into the smart cities. But where did he get these numbers? 30% by 2030. In fact, he is implementing the agenda that was put forward by the UN and amplified by Pope Francis. Pope Francis said exactly right here, quote, "I'm urging governments to support the United Nations call to safeguard 30% of the earth as protected habitats by 2030. In order to stem the loss of biodiversity." Of course, this plays into zoonotic threats, and it's because of a loss of biodiversity that we've had the pandemic. They've connected all of these nasty agendas together. But the bottom line here is we're starting to whittle away at human civilization, starting to destroy opportunities for any continued human activity. That is, after all, Agenda 2030 in action, pushing people into the smart cities, shutting down economic activity, taking total control, establishing the climate tracing initiative that Al Gore announced, watching every piece of emissions on the planet. Well, that will certainly be useful now in a climate Sabbath if we want to make sure that everyone stays inside on Sunday to worship Gaia. Boris Johnson is not the only world leader out there saying that the Pope seems to have a good idea here. Macron eagerly stepped on stage and said the Pope's got a good idea here. We should shut down human civilization. But there was more that the Pope has said recently, and in fact even 5 years ago in his encyclical, He really broke down the need to shut down economic activity and do away with capitalism. And even he tied it. He mentioned the Sabbath several times. Let's read now from the Pope's more recent comments over this past summer. In his words, the pandemic has shown that the earth can recover, quote, if we allow it to rest. And I'll just point out, Sabbath is Hebrew for rest. And so we'll see the Pope talking about rest a lot. He's actually talking about restoring the Sabbath, but not the real one. He notes that the planet is groaning under the constant demand for economic growth. Francis renewed his call for the cancellations of debts of the most vulnerable countries. This is the other part of what is being floated right now, is a forgiveness of debt, a debt jubilee for the developing countries. And the concept of debt and debt forgiveness is referenced in Laudato, his encyclical in 2015 as well. Pope Francis affirms that a true ecological debt exists, much like the debt of a sinner. Only this time, whereas God can forgive your sins, nature will not. Nature never cancels our debt. Our Mother Earth provides us everything we need to live. We are indebted to her, the Pope says. In return, we must cultivate and care for her. However, we have not, and we have failed to pay back our debts to the earth. Thus, she demands justice for these offenses that we inflict on her. She wants sacrifices. Pope Francis reminds us of the saying, God forgives, but sometimes nature does not. The language here is just stunning. The earth does not need our wealth to pay back what we owe her. What she needs is a Sabbath, according to the Pope. And here, directly from the Vatican, is his latest message. Just this month, the Pope released this message for the World Day of Prayer for the Care of Creation. Quote, I'm very pleased that the theme chosen by the ecumenical family for the celebration of the 2020 season of creation is Jubilee for the Earth, precisely in the year that marks the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. 50 years after their creation, the creation of the cult of global warming, is now announcing it's time for a jubilee and to return to a climate Sabbath. I hope you can see that there's a language and a pattern in the 50 years ago, Earth Day, now through it's the 50th anniversary. It's time for the Jubilee. This is a long-standing agenda, and it's a ritual too. This is a ritual to supplant the Creator with worship of the creation. In the Scriptures, continues the Pope, a jubilee is a sacred time to remember, return, rest, restore, and rejoice. And he expands on each of these themes. I'm going to skip directly to rest. Again, the literal translation of Sabbath. We must examine, says the Pope, our habits of energy usage, consumption, transportation, and yes, notably, diet. The Pope doesn't want you to eat meat anymore. He also wants you on that lab-grown meat and those insect proteins. But there's another player involved, because naturally you can't just have the Pope come in and take over the world and establish Sunday as the day of worship. There'd be too much resistance to that, even with the Jewish papers, like we said, calling for this as well. So enter Greta. Here's a piece from the Watuga Democrat last year. Your view, Greta's weekly climate strikes are actually setting a precedent here for a return to practicing the Sabbath, honoring the Sabbath. Quote, Greta Thunberg's weekly climate strikes, which have grown to include millions of people worldwide, essentially combine the practice of giving ourselves and nature a rest into the same day for the same practical reason of the Sabbath, to maintain the abundant nature of the creation. Moses, after escaping slavery, taught the Hebrew people how to live in a scarce desert by reintroducing tribal traditions. Greta's message is much the same, only this time it's billions of people that need to be able to survive on an increasingly scarce planet that's being over-harvested. So, in essential ways, Greta is like a modern-day Moses, asking us to slow down our consumption to a sustainable level so that humanity can live as responsible stewards of the earth. This piece goes on to make us aware of the fact that there's a third leg to the teachings of the Sabbath, and that is the Jubilee. So even they are bringing up what we've now seen floated in 2020 from the Pope and from other, like, again, world leaders like Macron saying, yeah, we should just forgive all of these other debts. Again, that's not going to be your credit card bill. That doesn't get forgiven. We're talking about a way out of the sovereign debt crisis that started back in 2008, right? We got a great reset to deal with here. So we might as well call it a Jubilee and say that it's biblical. But again, looking at the Guardian piece, what is it that they want to do on the climate Sabbath? Quote, we can easily close supermarkets, department stores, gas stations. We can reduce our mobility to the bare essentials without harming the economy in any way. I don't know how they plan to do that. We've seen the lockdowns were tremendously destructive to the world economy. So this is straight up a lie. But now we have, again, with the contact tracing, we have the technology and the climate tracing, watching in real time the emissions around the entire world so that they can enforce their Sabbath on the first day, on Sunday, not on the seventh day when God rested. And again, most importantly, a day for Gaia, a day for the earth, worshiping the creation and not the creator. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this goes much, much deeper. When you read the words of the Catholic Church, talking about why they moved the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday, a day of their choosing. Quote, Sunday is our mark of authority. The Church, the Catholic Church, is above the Bible, the Word of God. And this transference of the Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. It is our mark, the mark of the Catholic Church. I want to stop and leave it here. But again, if you're Catholic, I certainly don't mean to offend you. No matter what you are, I have no intention of offending you. I just wanted to draw your attention to this. Thanks for listening and for considering and for spreading the word if you feel so inclined, because people need to understand this, or else the reaction without thinking will just be, well, hey, I'm in favor of having a day off, right? Ladies and gentlemen, you can find this report and all my reports on iceagefarmer.com. If you appreciate this broadcast and the information I bring you, you can support this work. Visit iceagefarmer.com/support for a few ways of doing so, including patreon.com/iceagefarmer, maybe the easiest. But I thank you for helping me spread the word about this. All right, folks, let's go build great things, grow abundant, nutritive food, and raise awesome animals. Be well.